Introduction. The Odyssey, composed almost 3,000 years ago, is an epic poem. Epic both in the sense that it is long and in the sense that it presents itself as telling an important story. In the traditional formulaic language used by archaic poets for singing the tales of gods, wars, journeys, and the collective memories and experience of the Greek-speaking world. Modern connotations of the word epic are in some ways misleading when we turn to the Homeric poems, the texts that began the Western epic tradition. The Greek word epos means simply word or story or song. It is related to a verb meaning to say or to tell, which is used in a form with a prefix in the first line of the poem. The narrator commands the muse, "Tell me," an epē. An epic poem is, at its root, simply a tale that is told. The Odyssey is grand, or, in modern terms, epic in a scope. It is over 12,000 lines long. The poem is elevated in style, composed entirely in a regular poetic rhythm. A 6-beat line, and its vocabulary was not that used by ordinary Greeks in everyday speech, in any time or place. The language contains a strange mixture of words from different periods of time and from Greek dialects associated with different regions. A handful of words in Homer were incomprehensible to Greeks of the classical period, in the 5th and 4th centuries BCE. The syntax is relatively simple, but the words and phrases in these combinations are unlike the way that anybody ever actually spoke. The style is, from modern perspective, strange. It is full of repetitions, redundancies, and formulaic expressions. These mark the poem's debt to a long tradition of storytelling and suggest that we are in a world that is at least partly continuous with a distant, half-forgotten past. But in some ways, the story told in this long piece of verse is small and ordinary. It is a story, as the first word of the original Greek tells us, about a man, Andra. He is not the man, but one of many men, albeit a man of extraordinary cognitive, psychological, and military power. One who can win any competition, outwit any opponent, and manage against all odds to survive. The poem tells us how he makes his circuitous way back home across stormy seas after many years at war. We may expect the hero of an epic narrative to confront evil forces, perform a superhuman task, and rescue vast numbers of people from an extraordinary kind of threat. Failing that, we might hope at least for a great quest unexpectedly achieved, despite perils all around, an action that saves the world, or at least changes it in some momentous way, like Jason claiming the Golden Fleece, Lancelot glimpsing the Holy Grail, or Aeneas beginning the foundation of Rome. In the Odyssey, we find instead the story of a man whose grand adventure is simply to go back to his own home, where he tries to turn everything back to the way it was before he went. For this hero, mere survival is the most amazing feat of all. Only a portion of the 24 books of the Odyssey describes the magical wanderings of Odysseus on his journey back to Ithaca. These adventures are presented as a backstory, partly told by the hero himself in books 5 through 12. The poem cuts between far distant and diverse locations, from the Olympus to Earth, from Calypso's island to the palace at Ithaca, from the underworld to the cottage of the swineherd. Sometimes the setting feels entirely realistic, even mundane, a world where a mother packs a wholesome lunch of bread and cheese for her daughter, where there is a particular joy in taking a hot bath, where men listen to music and play checkers, and lively pretty girls have fun playing ball games together. At other moments we are in the realm of pure fantasy, inhabited by cannibals, witches, and goddesses with 6 barking heads, where it is possible to cross the streams of the ocean, the mythical river that encircles the known world, and come to the land of Asphodel, where the spirits of dead heroes live forever. Different characters tell their own inset stories, some true, some false, of past lives, adventures, dreams, memories, and troubles. The poem weaves and unweaves a multi-layered narrative that is both simple and artful in its patterning and composition. The story begins in an unexpected place, in medias res, in the middle of things, the proper starting point for an epic, according to Horace. It is not the start of the Trojan War, which began with the judgment of Paris and the abduction of Helen, and was fought for 10 years, nor does the poem start at the beginning of Odysseus's journey home, which has been in progress for almost as many years as the war. Instead, it begins when nothing much seems to be happening at all. Odysseus, his son, and his wife are all stuck in a state of frustration and paralysis that has been continuing for years and is becoming unbearable. Odysseus, at the start of the poem, is trapped by the goddess Calypso, who wants to have him stay there as her husband for eternity. He could choose to evade death and old age and stay always with her, but movingly he prefers to see even just the smoke that rises from his own homeland, and he wants to die. Odysseus longs to recover his own identity, not as a victim of a shipwreck or a coddled plaything of a powerful goddess, but as a master of his home and house, and as a father, and as a husband. He sits sobbing by the shore of the island every day, desperately staring at the fruitless sea, for a boat that might take him back home. Meanwhile, in Ithaca, Odysseus's wife Penelope is surrounded by young men who have forced their way into her home and are making merry with daily feasts, wasting the provisions of the household, waiting for her to agree to give up on Odysseus and marry one of them. Penelope has a deep loyalty both to her husband, for whom she weeps every night and whom she misses all the time, and also to the beautiful, rich house in which she lives, which she risks losing forever if she remarries. She has devised clever ways to put off the suitors, but it is clear that she cannot do so forever. Eventually, she will have to choose one of them as her husband, and perhaps leave the household of Odysseus for a new home. When that happens, either the suitors will divide the wealth of Odysseus between them, as they sometimes threaten, or the dominant suitor may gain the throne of Ithaca for himself. The ambiguity about what the suitors are seeking matches an even more central ambiguity about what Penelope herself wants. Indefinitely, tearfully, Penelope waits, keeping everyone guessing about her innermost feelings and intentions. As the chief suitor complains, she offers hope to all, sends signs to each, but all the while her mind moves somewhere else. This premise allows for artful resonance with earlier moments in the myth of Troy. Much courted Penelope resembles Helen, the woman to whom all the Greek heroes came as suitors. Menelaus, her husband, eventually won her hand by lot, and whom Paris, prince of Troy, later stole away. Like Paris, Penelope's suitors threatened to steal away a married woman as if she were a bride. Penelope's house also echoes the besieged town of Troy when the Greeks were fighting to take Helen back home, but there is no strong Hector to defend the inhabitants. Telemachus, Odysseus's almost adult son, is in a particularly precarious situation. Left as a little newborn baby when Odysseus sailed for Troy, he must be 20 or 21 years old at the time of the poem's action, but he seems in many ways younger. To fight off the suitors and take control of the household himself, he would need great physical and emotional strength, a strong group of supporters, and the capacity to plan a difficult military and political operation, none of which he possesses. Telemachus must completely survive difficult quests in the course of the poem, to survive the mortal danger posed by the suitors, to mature and grow up to manhood, to find his lost father and help him regain control of the house. The journey with which the story begins is not that of Odysseus himself, but of Telemachus, who sets out to find news of his absent father. The son's journey away from home parallels the father's quest in the opposite direction. The poem intertwines the story of these three central characters, the father, the mother, the son, and shows us how something different is at stake for each of them in the gradual and difficult struggle to rebuild their lost nuclear family. The Odyssey puts us into a world that is a peculiar mixture of the strange and the familiar. The tension between strangeness and familiarity is the is in fact the poem's central subject. Its setting in the islands of the Mediterranean and Aegean seas would have been vaguely familiar to any Greek-speaking reader, but the verse of the region includes sea monsters and giants who eat humans, as well as gods who walk the earth and talk with select favorites among the mortals. We encounter a surprisingly varied range of different characters and types of incident: giants and beggars, arrogant young men and vulnerable old slaves, a princess who does laundry, and a dead warrior who misses the sunshine. Gods, goddesses, and ghosts, brave deeds, love affairs, spells, dreams, songs, and stories. Odysseus himself seems to contain multitudes. He is a migrant, a pirate, a carpenter, a king, an athlete, a beggar, a husband, a lover, a father, a son, a fighter, a liar, a leader, and a thief. He is a man who cries, takes naps, and feels homesick, but he is also a man who has special relationship with the goddess who transforms his appearance at will and ensures his own schemes succeed. The poem promotes but also questions in its own fantasies and ideals, such as the idea that time and change can be undone, and the notion that there is such a thing as home, where people and relationships can stay forever the same.